this situation, I'm only going to be here once, and I've had 35 years as a cartoonist, and I think I can tell you something, I really can. We don't have a lot of time, ever. You need weeks, years, a lifetime. So what I'm going to do today is start with the acting of caricature and comic. We're not going to be drawing caricatures of each other. We're going to be pulling caricatures out of the air based on things that we talk about in the class. We're going to talk about the shortcuts. We're going to talk about the graphic icons of cartooning. You know, the cloud that forms over your head when you're depressed, or the lightning strike, or the way rain looks on a window. Things like that we automatically know are part of comic art. A balloon, a thought balloon, has bubbles in it. An angry thought might have a zapping look to it. The type of lettering that you use, all of these are symbols that all belong to the language of comic art. So that's what we're going to talk about today. The thing that really takes the time to develop is your own personal style. And I'm hoping that we can talk a little bit about that. But to begin with, it's the graphic iconism that's in behind comic art, and how with the slightest move of a line or a sideways glance that you can achieve acting and theater, because that's what this is all about. It's a performance. What you are is you're performing using a character. It's like puppetry. It's like animation, but it's on your paper, in your time, in your speed, with your thoughts and your emotions, and how to take that and entertain someone else, because it's an entertainment medium. I'm an actor right now. I'm making eye contact with each one of you, and in your drawings you have to make eye contact. Your characters live. They're real characters, they're real beings. They live inside your head, but you bring them to life on the paper. And the only way to do that is by living out loud, by recording everything you see, by listening to everything that you're being taught, and by swallowing it and being able to bring it back later. It's wonderful now that universities, colleges, high schools, regular classrooms use comic art as part of their curriculum now, and it wasn't the case when I was young. Even so, it's not often that somebody who's been in the profession can come to a classroom and to talk to students about, some of the nitty-gritty and the tricks of the trade, as it were. So anytime I have an opportunity to do that, I really like to do it, and I know the people who come are interested. It's not as though they're just coming in out of the rain for that heck of doing something different. Somebody who takes a class in comic art really wants to be there. They really want to learn, because it's a passion. It is such a part of you that you fall asleep thinking about it. And so I know what it's like. I know what it's like to be a kid and wanting to draw and wanting some guidance. And I enjoy giving it when I can. Okay, so what you're going to do is you're going to play with these lines and the letter C, and you're going to see how many faces you can make with this. You can spread the eyes apart, you can bring the nose down, you can change the mouth. Look at how many expressions, just by moving that little mouth around, just by changing where the nose is, just by moving the eyes closer together, just by changing the position of the letter C. If you bring everything down, right down to one little corner, you make a baby's face. Look at that. That's a baby, right there. What does this symbolize?
A cloud? Oh, a thought balloon.
A thought balloon.
A thought balloon.
Right? And if somebody is going like that, what's that?
A speech balloon.
A speech balloon. And if something is like that,
Yell.
it usually means text.
Yeah, like
Or it means...
a mechanical word balloon.
Absolutely. The shapes of the balloons actually tell you something about... It's like a shorthand. It's like a special kind of language that comic artists and people who like comics and read comics automatically know about. A cloud can be drawn like that. That's automatically a cloud. If you're drawing a car going over a hill, the shorthand for making a car look like it's going fast, and I'm drawing this really fast so that I can get it done, is to not have the car touch the ground. If the car touches the ground, then it stops. If you bring that ground up to touch the car stops moving. Right, can you see that? The car stops moving. If the car is not touching the ground, it's in motion. It's little things like that and shadows underneath that let you know that something is happening. And it's a cartoon shorthand. It's the way cartoons go. You've seen these little lines here like that. Let's go down here a little bit. Something simple like that. Somebody's angry, right? Somebody can have radiations coming out of their head. They can have these lines coming out of their head. All of these things are shorthand for comic art. I think I've drawn cartoons ever since I could hold a pencil, but the person who really took me seriously was my dad, and he liked to cartoon. And so he did a lot of comic art and comic drawings, and he would watch me draw and help me draw, and he would show me a lot of people's artwork. I mean, he was a real comic art fan. We looked through the Saturday morning comics, and we would go to Len Norris's shows. Len Norris was the editorial cartoonist for the Vancouver Sun. So I got my start very early through someone who took comic art seriously. Okay? Every part of the cartoonist is articulated. You think and move and breathe and act like your characters. So it's often hard to imagine that in that character's imaginary world there are imaginary things. So now I'm going to tell you to do something really, really difficult. And that is take the character and turn it to the side. I want you to imagine that your character has rotated and you're looking at the character from the side, from the profile. From the side. And it can be either side. It can be this side, it could be this side, but I want you to get a sense that this character is three-dimensional.
So you want it to be looking at you?
I want it to be looking at you from the front, like that, and looking to the side, like that. Absolutely perfectly done. But the question is, what happens to the neck? How do you put the neck in there? And that's where knowing your anatomy comes in. Yeah.
Well, mine is in a ponytail, so I could just do it like that.
You could. That's helpful if the hair is away from the neck. But if the hair covers the neck, that's when knowing something about your anatomy comes in. Which is what we were going to do in a little while, is when you've drawn the whole character, is we're going to put a skeleton on the character. We're going to figure out what the skeleton is of your character. So a fish has a long skeleton with a spine. Well, one thing you could do for yourself is to practice drawing hands. Yeah. Do it lots and lots, because the stuff that you really hate, I hate drawing feet. You don't like drawing feet either. No, I hate it. Archie comics are the best comics on the planet for hands and feet. So next time you see an Archie comic, pick it up and learn how to draw hands and feet from the Archie comics, because it'll teach you more than you'll ever know on your own. That's how I learned for the comic strip. Is I just copied Archie comics. I learned that way. Yeah, it's amazing how, and you know, you're not really copying somebody else's work. I mean, it's okay if you're learning, you know. Don't look at your paper. Quit drawing. Pose 4. Pose 5. Pose 6. Scribble. Fast. Fast, fast, fast. You're not even looking at me hardly. You're looking at me. You're looking at the paper. You're looking at me. Okay. all my life I've been drawing cartoons, and never really knew where I would go in order to make a living with this. And I went to art school, but it was awfully hard for me to go to a fine arts college. I wanted to do graphics and advertising and all those things, and that was really not encouraged at the Vancouver School of Art at the time. In fact, anybody who went into graphics was called a hack, and we were expected to wear good clothes where the others could wear smocks and be, you know, cool. So I was having trouble, and about third year I quit when I got a job full-time actually in an animation studio in Vancouver, and that's where I thought I'd go. I mean, they say now that's where my peeps are, right? Well, I met all these people there who were just like me. And so I was actually offered a job at J. Ward Studios in Los Angeles while I was working for Hanna-Barbera in Vancouver. But at the time I got married, dumb. And but we were young, you know, you're in your 20s and in the 60s. If you weren't married by the time you were 25, you were old and, you know. So off we went to Ontario, me and my young new husband, looking for our fortune. He was a television cameraman, and one thing led to another in terms of art. I worked for McMaster University. Wonderful doors opened for me. People saw my work, encouraged me to go further. I ended up doing some cartoon art books on pregnancy and raising kids, and those were sent to Universal Press Syndicate, and I was given a 20-year contract. Now that is, in a tiny little nutshell, something that took many years to develop. But yeah, I was given an opportunity to be a cartoonist who made a living, and that was rare. Now, what I don't want you to draw particularly is the chair itself. I want you to draw the spaces between the spokes. I want you to draw everything that is not the chair. Do you understand what I'm saying?
Not really.
All right. See, there's a triangle shape there, right? There's another triangle shape there. There's another triangle shape there. 3 triangles in a row, or 3 oblong shapes in a row. I want you to draw what is not the chair. I want you to draw some of these little all of the little sections in here. You can do a ghost outline of the chair. But what I want you to concentrate is on these, it's called negative space.
Yeah.
Okay, you can see, you've heard about negative space? You've talked about that in art class before? Have you ever drawn something from negative space?
Yes.
Okay, look at, this is negative space, right here. Okay, that's negative space. Because I learned more from drawing negative space than I ever did from just drawing what I saw, what was really there. Because what you're looking at is every shape that's in between the thing itself. And a chair is a perfect thing to draw from. I swear, it is the best exercise ever for life drawing and for drawing anything, whether it's cars, trees, factory walls. You will always have to use a negative space. I was in about 2,000 papers, and that's considered a real success. In fact, 100 papers is a good number, and you can make a living very comfortably on 100 papers. So to be in 2,000 papers was great. I was up there with Charles Schultz and Garfield and a lot of the other really good strips. But even though our work was well known and we were becoming well known and of interest because we had books out every year, galleries and curators tended to look at our work and think of it as being not art. And yet comic art galleries, of course, would be having very well attended shows, but it was comic art for the sake of comic art, and it wasn't an established gallery that would be showing paintings and other fine art exhibitions. So when the Sudbury Gallery approached me and asked me if I was interested in doing a show, I kind of imagined it would be a comic art thing. If I was designing it, it would have had lots of colors and pizzazz and goofiness. But what you did was a serious look at the art of cartooning, which was, it was a real honor, and it was also establishing this line art as being art that belonged in the world of galleries and art. And I started to take my own work more seriously, in fact, and this is after I've retired, after I've done 35 years worth of work and being told several times that my work was not art. To see it treated with such I don't know, it was sincerity. There was a sense of honor and respect given to work that I probably would have just tossed out. I gave away lots of my work. I sold it, I gave it away, I sent it off. And I didn't really look at it with the same kind of serious eye that you did. And so this was a marvelous opportunity for myself, and it will be for other comic artists as well into the future, because surprisingly, comic art shows are well attended. And the people who really, really enjoy them the most, I think, are young people, or children, because I think that's where you begin. Comic graphic drawings are the things we all begin with, though that little stick house with the sunshine and the lines around it, that's comic art. And in fact, you know, they say it's the oldest profession because the cave drawings were really comic art. It was line art. And that's really where we begin. Something that's recognizable, something that is personal, and something that hits you square in the chest sometimes with a little bit of reality. Okay, so the animators who were drawing the dog all had to know what the dog looked like and sounded like as it was backing up against a wall. So we had 6 animators backing up against a wall like this, trying to rub their rear ends up a wall because they wanted to know how to draw the dog. In order to draw the dog, all these people had to feel what was it like to back up as a dog, come up against a wall, and then keep on backing up, keep on backing up. And so these were grown people with a degree in art who had to become that dog and know how the dog moved and worked and what its facial expression would be like. And they did that by doing it themselves, by acting it out themselves. So if you feel like standing on a surfboard, stand on the surfboard. You can get up and you can stand and you can move around. And all of these sensations help you to draw. Great stuff. Great stuff. Yeah, what I like about this is that you've really thought about where her legs would be on that surfboard and how she would be balancing. And remember, when you're a comic strip artist, you have to draw that character thousands of times. Literally, thousands of times. I think it went really well. There was some wonderful, well, there's always great talent in a class like that, because they don't come unless they love to draw and they're really enjoying every part of it, right? So I think they listened really well. I wanted to get them to see how with tiny little motions and tiny little symbols you can change expressions. I wanted them to see that a character lives in your mind and it has to live for an audience. I wanted them to see how a character has structure and balance and motion. I wanted to breathe a little more life into what they were doing, like rather than just have a flat image, to have them see things in 3 dimensions with a story behind them and a life to them. And I hope I did that. I really think right at the beginning, when you show how many faces you can make with 2 dots, the letter C, and a tiny little line, I think that probably will stay with them as long as perhaps the negative spaces. Everybody hates negative spaces, but you will use it time and time again all your life, and I hope they learned from that too. Well, I thought they were old enough to take it seriously and to not clown around, and there's always one clown in the room, and I don't feel too uncomfortable with it because that was me. You know, I would be the one that was, horsing around and asking questions and climbing under the table, and yeah, I couldn't sit still, so I know what that's like, and obviously I ended up making a living, so who knows. This is the first time I have taught a children's class. I've always really kind of wanted to because I wanted it so badly myself. And some of the people who stood out in my mind as a student were some of the professionals that were brought into my class, potters, writers, poets, people that our teachers knew who were living, breathing examples of what I loved, you know. And if somebody had brought a cartoonist into my class to talk about cartoons, I would have been in heaven. So if I couldn't have it as a kid, then I'll provide it as an adult and hope that some of the kids take it away and enjoy it as much as I would have. Simple as that.